Chapter 15, Part 2 of Bel Ami, or the History of a Scoundrel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Martin Geeson. Bel Ami, or the History of a Scoundrel, by Guy de Maupassant. Translator unknown. Chapter 15. Suzanne, Part 2. Monsieur de Marelle bowed. "Very well. If I lose you, we can meet here again in an hour." The two young people disappeared in the crowd, followed by the husband. Madame de Marelle said: "There are two girls who will have 20 or 30 millions each. And Suzanne is pretty in the bargain." He made no reply. His own thought coming from the lips of another irritated him. He took Clotilde to see the painting. As they crossed the conservatory, he saw his wife seated near Laroche Mathieu, both of them almost hidden behind a group of plants. They seemed to say, "We are having a meeting in public, for we do not care for the world's opinion." Madame de Marelle admired Karl Markovich's painting, and they turned to repair to the other rooms. They were separated from Monsieur de Marelle. He asked: "Is Laurine still vexed with me?" "Yes. She refuses to see you, and goes away when you are mentioned." He did not reply. The child's sudden enmity grieved and annoyed him. Suzanne met them at a door and cried: "Oh, here you are! Now, Bel Ami, you are going to be left alone, for I shall take Clotilde to see my room." And the two women glided through the throng. At that moment a voice at his side murmured: "Georges!" It was Mme. Walter. She continued in a low voice: "How cruel you are! How needlessly you inflict suffering upon me! I bade Suzanne take that woman away, that I might have a word with you. Listen, I must speak with you this evening, or you do not know what I shall do. Go into the conservatory. You will find a door to the left through which you can reach the garden. Follow the walk directly in front of you. At the end of it you will see an arbor. Expect me in 10 minutes. If you do not meet me, I swear I will cause a scandal here at once." He replied haughtily: "Very well, I shall be at the place you named in 10 minutes." But Jacques Rival detained him. When he reached the alley, he saw Mme. Walter in front of him. She cried: "Ah, here you are! Do you wish to kill me?" He replied calmly: "I beseech you, none of that, or I shall leave you at once." Throwing her arms around his neck, she exclaimed: "What have I done to you that you should treat me so?" He tried to push her away. "You twisted your hair around my coat buttons the last time we met, and it caused trouble between my wife and myself." She shook her head. "Ah, your wife would not care. It was one of your mistresses who made a scene." "I have none." "Indeed! Why do you never come to see me? Why do you refuse to dine with me even once a week? I have no other thoughts than of you. I suffer terribly. You cannot understand that your image, always present, closes my throat. stifles me, and leaves me scarcely strength enough to move my limbs in order to walk. So I remain all day in my chair, thinking of you." He looked at her in astonishment. These were the words of a desperate woman, capable of anything. He, however, cherished a vague project, and replied: "My dear, love is not eternal. One loves, and one ceases to love. When it lasts, it becomes a drawback. I want none of it. However, if you will be reasonable, and will receive and treat me as a friend, I will come to see you as formerly. Can you do that?" She murmured: "I can do anything in order to see you." "Then it is agreed that we are to be friends, nothing more." She gasped: "It is agreed." Offering him her lips, she cried in her despair: "One more kiss, one last kiss." He gently drew back. "No, we must adhere to our rules." She turned her head and wiped away 2 tears, then drawing from her bosom a package of notes tied with pink ribbon, she held it towards Duroy. "Here is your share of the profits in that Moroccan affair. I was so glad to make it for you. Here, take it." He refused. "No, I cannot accept that money." She became excited. "Oh, you will not refuse it now. It is yours, yours alone. If you do not take it, I will throw it in the sewer. You will not refuse it, Georges." He took the package and slipped it into his pocket. "We must return to the house. You will take cold." "So much the better. If I could but die." She seized his hand, kissed it passionately, and fled toward the house. He returned more leisurely, and entered the conservatory with head erect and smiling lips. His wife and Laroche were no longer there. The crowd had grown thinner. Suzanne, leaning on her sister's arm, advanced toward him. In a few moments, Rose, whom they teased about a certain count, turned upon her heel and left them. Duroy, finding himself alone with Suzanne, said in a caressing voice: "Listen, my dear little one, do you really consider me a friend?" "Why, yes, Bel-Ami." "You have faith in me?" "Perfect faith." "Do you remember what I said to you a while since?" "About what?" "About your marriage, or rather the man you would marry." "Yes." "Well, will you promise me one thing?" "Yes, what is it?" "To consult me when you receive a proposal, and to accept no one without asking my advice." "Yes, I will gladly." "And it is to be a secret between us, not a word to your father or mother?" "Not a word." Rival approached them, saying: "Mademoiselle, your father wants you in the ballroom." She said: "Come, Bel-Ami." But he refused, for he had decided to leave at once, wishing to be alone with his thoughts. He went in search of his wife, and found her drinking chocolate at the buffet with 2 strange men. She introduced her husband without naming them. In a short while he asked: "Shall we go?" "Whenever you like." She took his arm, and they passed through the almost deserted rooms. Madeleine asked: Where is Mme. Walter? I should like to bid her good bye." "It is unnecessary. She would try to keep us in the ballroom, and I have had enough." "You are right." On the way home they did not speak. But when they had entered their room, Madeleine, without even taking off her veil, said to him with a smile: "I have a surprise for you." He growled ill naturedly. "What is it?" "Guess." "I cannot make the effort." "The day after tomorrow is the 1st of January." "Yes." "It is the season for New Year's gifts." "Yes." "Here is yours, which Laroche handed me just now." She gave him a small black box which resembled a jewel casket. He opened it indifferently and saw the cross of the Legion of Honor. He turned a trifle pale, then smiled and said: "I should have preferred 10 millions. That did not cost him much." She had expected a transport of delight and was irritated by his indifference. "You are incomprehensible. Nothing seems to satisfy you." He replied calmly: "That man is only paying his debts. He owes me a great deal more." She was astonished at his tone and said: "It is very nice, however, at your age." He replied: "I should have much more." He took the casket, placed it on the mantelpiece, and looked for some minutes at the brilliant star within it. Then he closed it with a shrug of his shoulders and began to prepare to retire. L'Officiel of January 1st announced that Monsieur Prosper Georges Duroy had been decorated with the Legion of Honor for exceptional services. The name was written in 2 words, and that afforded Georges more pleasure than the decoration itself. An hour after having read that notice, he received a note from Mme. Walter, inviting him to come and bring his wife to dine with them that evening, to celebrate his distinction. At first he hesitated, then throwing the letter in the fire, he said to Madeleine: "We shall dine at the Walters this evening." In her surprise she exclaimed: "Why, I thought you would never set your foot in their house again." His sole reply was: "I have changed my mind." When they arrived at Rue du Faubourg Saint Honore, they found Mme. Walter alone in the dainty boudoir in which she received her intimate friends. She was dressed in black and her hair was powdered. At a distance she appeared like an old lady, in proximity like a youthful one. "Are you in mourning?" asked Madeleine. She replied sadly: "Yes and no. I have lost none of my relatives, but I have arrived at an age when one should wear sombre colors. I wear it today to inaugurate it. Hitherto I have worn it in my heart." The dinner was somewhat tedious. Suzanne alone talked incessantly. Rose seemed preoccupied. The journalist was overwhelmed with congratulations after the meal, when all repaired to the drawing rooms. Mme. Walter detained him as they were about to enter the salon, saying: "I will never speak of anything to you again, only come to see me, Georges. It is impossible for me to live without you. I see you, I feel you in my heart, all day and all night. It is as if I had drunk a poison which preyed upon me. I cannot bear it. I would rather be as an old woman to you. I powdered my hair for that reason to night. But come here, come from time to time as a friend." He replied calmly: "Very well, it is unnecessary to speak of it again. You see, I came to day on receipt of your letter." Walter, who had preceded them with his two daughters and Madeleine, awaited Duroy near the picture of Christ walking on the water. "Only think," said he, "I found my wife yesterday kneeling before that painting, as if in a chapel. She was praying." Mme. Walter replied in a firm voice, in a voice in which vibrated a secret exultation. "That Christ will save my soul. He gives me fresh courage and strength every time that I look at him." And pausing before the picture, she murmured: "How beautiful he is! How frightened those men are, and how they love him! Look at his head, his eyes, how simple and supernatural he is at the same time." Suzanne cried: "Why, he looks like you, Bel Ami. I am sure he looks like you. The resemblance is striking." She made him stand beside the painting, and everyone recognized the likeness. Duroy was embarrassed. Walter thought it very singular. Madeleine, with a smile, remarked that Jesus looked more manly. Mme. Walter stood by motionless, staring fixedly at her lover's face, her cheeks as white as her hair. Chapter 15. Recording by Martin Geeson in Hazelmere, Surrey.